Hi everybody, welcome back to my channel and onto the video where I rank every episode of Season 4 of Are You Afraid of the Dark. I have done this for the first 3 seasons, which I'll link down below in the description box, so if you've not checked those out already, please go take a look and let me know what you think. And as always, as everybody says in these kind of ranking videos, this is just my opinion. If you don't like my opinion, that's fine, just be nice about it. I really like when people put comments down below with their ranking and either it's like really similar to mine or it's very different to mine. Either way, I find it really fascinating to read through, especially when it's like really different to mine, because I always wonder what makes someone put something that I put really low, really high, and vice versa. So yeah, please let me know your opinions down below. And just a little disclaimer before we start, I'll be doing 12 to 1 rather than 13 to 1 because I'm putting Cutter's Treasure Part 1 and 2 as a two-parter in one thing. So it'll only be from 12 to 1. So let's jump into the ranking. Okay, my least favourite episode of Season 4 of You Afraid of the Dark, in 12th place, a surprise to no one that watched my reactions, is the tale of Train Magic. Now, I feel like this is a bit cliche for saying this is the worst one because I've heard some bad things about it before I even watched it. But to be honest, I just found it quite boring on the most part. There was a couple of interesting things, and I know I tend to ramble a lot in these videos, so I'm going to try and talk fairly fast-ish. But the episode, I didn't find the train magic very interesting. I didn't find the train subject all that interesting. The locations weren't that good, other than maybe the train carriage itself was I quite liked when he got sucked into the carriage, and the characters that were in there with the little figurines. That was quite interesting. The characters were mostly forgettable, although I did like the relationship between the two brothers. The relationship with him and Cap was fine. But on the most part, I just think the episode just doesn't really have much of an impact. It's not massively memorable, other than being quite boring. And I might be alone in that. That might be a popular opinion. I don't know. But for me, it was just very slow and just not all that interesting. For a show that was a lot of ghost stories, it was one that for me was really forgettable and quite weak. Okay, in 11th place, I put The Tale of the Room for Rent, another ghost story. And another ghost story which for me is mostly kind of forgettable. But this one I actually quite enjoyed when I was watching it. It just didn't have that kind of impact on me that some of the ghost stories I've had in the past, like Lonely Ghost or Whispering Walls and things like that. So The Tale of the Room for Rent was obviously where the spare room got rented out to that ghost that the lady down the street had summoned, and it had some good moments, like when the ghost was hovering above the granddad and when it leaned through the door. I thought that was cool. That was quite good effects, quite creepy, and I think it did really well. And the guy who played the ghost was creepy. Just the way he spoke to and looked to the young girl in the episode, I was like, I don't know how I feel about this. And I did like some of the stuff about the relationship between the granddad, the ghost, and the psychic lady, or the lady who did the fortune telling and things like that. That was all quite interesting, but on the most part it was slow. The main characters weren't massively memorable because they didn't really do a lot to help the story, other than like the conclusion of it. The ghost had to be talked out, I guess, by them a little bit, but yeah, they weren't really that memorable as characters. Mostly a forgettable episode, but also quite fun. So it's a bit of a weird juxtaposition when I know that I'm talking it's fun, but it's forgettable. You know what I mean? But yeah, for me, it was quite a weak episode of the season as well, which is because this season has some great episodes. So yeah, in 11th place, The Tale of the Room for Rent. In 10th place, I placed The Tale of the Unfinished Painting. This is a strange one to put so low because some parts of the episode I loved, primarily towards the end. Some part of the episodes I didn't like, primarily. Mostly the first half. So, The Unfinished Painting, where I find it lacked was it had a lot of dead space, and even when I edited it, because sometimes I say stuff in the recording, and then when I'm editing it back and watching it back, I take bits out that I've said, because I've forgotten things, or I've said things that are not right. I do still feel like the episode had a lot of dead space, and that there's a lot of time where it's just music playing while you're watching something, and a lot of quietness, and a lot of times when no one was really doing much. And don't get me wrong, sometimes that works, sometimes it can be really effective. But this episode just dragged quite a bit for me till we started to get more into the matter of the head in the cupboard, and when she got sucked into the painting and the brother came to rescue her. The last little bits were great. The head in the box talking to her, the woman revealing she was the girl and she was crazy and she was like really old, and burning the thing and the painting coming on fire. All that kind of stuff was really good, but it just took a while to get there, and I just wish it had a good premise, but I wish it did more with the whole painting being sucked into it. Learn a bit more about the head, learn a bit more about the woman who was helping him. It took just a while to set up the story, which for me dragged. For other people it might not, but that's just for me, while the tale of the unfinished painting is in 10th place. In 9th place, another episode that I thought I was going to hate, and surprisingly didn't, The Tale of the Long Ago Locket. This episode, if you told me on paper what this episode's going to be about, it's not my kind of episode. Like, time travel-y stuff isn't always the best for me. And it's where, like, it's all about helping someone who was in the war get back to his loved one, and we get flashes into it, get pulled into that story. I'm a bit like, just not, I prefer, like, monsters and demons and more spooky stuff. Whereas this one isn't my story on paper. But I actually quite enjoyed it. I don't know what it was about it. I think it was good action-packed, but I remember really liking the main character. I can't remember what his name was now, because it's been probably a year, near enough, since I watched it. But I remember liking the main character. I like his relationship with the girl that he fancied. I like that he was trying to help the guy from the past in the war, help him survive his situation to get back to the woman he fancied. And it was like a similar position that he was in. He never told her, like, he loved her. You think he was going to... Was the guy going to stop her wedding? Something like that. And I liked that the paths kind of crossed. And I just thought it was quite a good episode. I quite enjoyed it. More than I expected to. So that's why 9th place is The Tale of the Long Ago Locket. In 8th place, I've chosen The Tale of the Fire Ghost. Now, this is an episode because I've recorded it so far in advance, because I took a long break. I don't know what people think of this episode. I don't know if people like it, people hate it. I have literally no idea. But I thought this episode was quite fun. The show does a lot of ghost stories. Some are going to work, some are not going to work. But what I liked about this one was the uniqueness of the fact that pretty much all of it, I think, as far as I can remember, took place inside the fire station, which for me I really liked. I like the fire station location, and I like stories in general that take place in one building, one location. I like the closeness, not that they were trapped for most of the episodes, some of it they weren't, but I like the fact that they feel quite claustrophobic, those episodes, because we only take place in one major location. I liked the ghost. I liked the fact that he was this dude that was like on fire at points, and I thought visually he was quite cool, had some creepy elements. And because it has been so long, I don't remember all the elements of the episode. I know it's somehow linked to the dad. He worked at the fire service, I believe. And there was something about the ghost that died, or something to do with that, I think. I could be wrong. But I did remember liking the family elements of it. I liked the ghost, I liked the creepy effects that there were, and I remember it being quite scary at points. And so, yeah, the fire ghost is one that I've had images in my head of it since I watched it, like the dude being on fire and certain points of the episode that I thought were quite cool. So yeah, the fire ghost was good. Again, I love the location, love the closeness of the being forced to all take place inside the fire station. I thought that was quite cool. So yeah, so for me, in the 8th place, The Tale of the Fire Ghost. I'm very excited to see what you guys think about it. I can have a completely different opinion on this one. We'll have to find out, hopefully, very soon. Okay, in 7th place, I think it's going to be quite controversial. I think people really like this episode. I'm sorry if you do. The Tale of the Silent Servant. I think scarecrows are quite creepy in general, but I know, like, between Goosebumps and this episode, scarecrows are creepy, especially when they come alive and start walking around. And what I really liked about this episode was, whilst the scarecrow was creepy at points, it wasn't always played off as a horror entity, villain, whatever. There's also a really scary scarecrow in Supernatural. Anyway, what I liked was that whilst it was kind of creepy, it was actually a helpful thing for a long time. Like, when they kind of took ownership of, like, the control of the scarecrow, it was actually just doing stuff to help them. It wasn't trying to be a villain. It just did things bad because that was the best way it saw to help them. And now I'm talking myself into it should be higher, but I'm going to leave it where it is for now. But you know me, I always change my mind on these things. But yeah, I liked, like, say he said they fixed this fence, and then they had to build was it like a baseball dugout sort of thing, like a little shed sort. I can't remember. But to build it, the scarecrow just took the nearest wood that it saw, which was the fence, and built this other thing. And so it didn't see that it was doing a bad thing. It just saw that it wants this thing my master wants this thing built. Here's the wood. I will build it. And it just led itself to seeming quite creepy, especially towards the end of the episode when it went after the other characters. I'm saying it vaguely because I can't remember all the details. I just remember parts of it. But it was good. Like I say, it was kind of creepy, but kind of interesting, the twist on the fact that it wasn't just a horror thing. It was, this scarecrow was trying to do the right thing. It's doing what it's been told to do. The actual villain, in some ways, you could say, is the person controlling it, because it's not making its instructions very clear. Or the owner saying, like, I wish this thing would happen, without thinking, and then bad things come of it. But I really enjoyed it. That was The Tale of the Silent Servant. Really strong episode. In 6th place, I've chosen the first 2 episodes, the double-parter, The Tale of Cutter's Treasure. This was good. For a 2-parter, I wasn't sure what to make of it because I like that each episode is 1 part. Now, I know I'm a big fan of Goosebumps where they do a lot of 2-parters, but this is the first time Are You Afraid of the Dark I've tackled a 2-part episode, and I wasn't sure how it would feel. And it was definitely 2 very different episodes. Like the first episode was introducing this pirate stuff, meeting Sardo, the brother getting kidnapped, and the second half introduced Dr. Vink. It was a rescue mission, the adventures, there was fires, there was action, there was a fight between the pirate and the boy. And so it was 2 very different episodes, but as a whole, I think it was a really fun 40 minutes. Again, I don't know what people's opinions of this is, but I think it actually handled a 2-parter pretty well. Whilst the first half was probably a little slower than the second, they usually are with 2-parters, because it's a lot of setup. I like the fact that it brought back 2 iconic Are You Afraid of the Dark characters, Sardo and Vink, and put them together in 1 episode, which was very unusual. But obviously because it was told by Gary and Frank, who that's their 2 characters. And yeah, it was good that they got brought together for this episode, and there was quite a good relationship between the 2. A bit bantery, kind of a bit flirty right near the end if I remember it correctly. But I just thought this episode was quite strong, and I liked the acting. I liked the brothers. I remember really liking the actor who played one of the brothers who's been in it before. I think he was in Full Moon. And he grew up to be a bit of a nice-looking gentleman, let's put it that way. But yeah, the episodes were quite fun. Good action, good adventure. Not my normal type of episode, because like I said, I prefer the horror ones as over the kind of action-y ones, or the ghost ones sometimes. But yeah, this was really cool. That was The Tale of Cutter's Treasure, Part 1 and 2. In 5th place, I've chosen The Tale of the Closet Keepers. I wasn't sure what to make of this one, but before I started watching it, I'm not going to lie, because when I took the long break, I came back with Room for Rent, and that couple of episodes around there, I was a bit like, wasn't massively enjoying my return to Are You Afraid of the Dark. They were good, I enjoyed them, but they weren't like the best episodes of Are You Afraid of the Dark, you know? So when I got to Closet Keepers, I was like, okay, I'm hoping this one's better. And oh my god, it was. I loved it. And like I said at the episode, if you've not watched my reactions, this episode really gave me mainly the Tale of the 13th Floor vibes, because it was aliens are nearby, they get into the alien space, in this case, spaceship, in that case it was a toy factory, and there's really silly, cheesy designed rooms, where this one, it was like the main room that the aliens were in with a map where they chose where to fly to. It was very sparse and silly looking, and then especially when she got into the cage room, where it was like the little child's room, a lot of that was just paintings on the walls with the odd bit that was real, and that gave me vibes of that room in Laughing in the Dark as well, so that was quite good. As I said, a lot of these episodes, I really love the relationship between the 2 main characters. He started off as a bit mean to her, because the main character, the girl in this, was deaf. Can't remember what she was called though, but she was deaf, and he got trapped and she ended up saving him, and he appreciated her and started trying to do sign language and stuff as well. And I thought it was just a really cute development for the characters and how they bonded through this hard experience. And I just thought the bad guys were interesting. I'd love to know more about them. I really would. Like the main dudes that were in suits obviously went to capture the children, but then the main guy who was in control of it all was dressed in like really scruffy clothes and looked like a homeless person a bit. But then the aliens that went to visit this zoo were in like the gas masks and whatnot. So there was 3 very different types of people. Are they all aliens? There's some humans that work for them. I'm guessing they're all aliens, but I'm not too sure. But it really makes me want to know more about the characters and the villains and the purpose of it all. What happens after the children grow up? Do they get killed or whatnot? But I really enjoy the setting, the sets, the visuals, the action. The main character was really good, really resourceful and smart. And so I love that there was representation, a deaf person who was actually really intelligent and helped save the day. Great. I'm not sure if the actress was actually deaf. I don't think she was, because I believe she was in Lonely Ghost as well. I believe, yeah, she was one of the minor characters, one of Beth's, don't touch my stuff, Beth's little friends that turns against her right at the end. I love this episode. I thought it was great. The Tale of the Closet Keepers, it was so good. So much fun. Okay, in 4th place, The Tale of the Water Demons. I remember, before I watched the episode, I had a very clear memory of watching this episode as a kid and being really frightened. The idea of the fact that when you fall asleep, these demons come out of the water and crawl towards your house or walk towards your house to try and attack you. That idea used to scare me as a kid. I remember I never watched it more than maybe once or twice as a kid, because the idea freaked me out. And over the years, when I keep meaning to go back to the show, this is one of the ones that I remember. I remember that very specific image of the people walking towards the house when he was asleep. And he wakes up, they go away. I thought that was really scary. Watching it back, it was a good episode because it was cool. It was like treasure and throwing stuff in the water, but they're still alive and why? And there was some creepy moments and the characters were quite good. I liked the main two characters in it and how they went through this journey together. But it just wasn't as scary as I remember it being. And yes, before you say it's a kid's show, I know that. But this show in particular does do some stuff that is really scary and does hold up over the years with some of it. This one for me it didn't. I think maybe the look of the demons, because they were just dudes in kind of typical zombie look attire, but were wet. I feel like if they were more creepy looking, that would have helped. But I did really like it. The idea is really cool, and the story of the brothers is really good. This season there's some really strong episodes. Pretty much everything from the Fire Ghost upwards, the top 8. I really enjoyed all of them. It was quite funny. I liked when I can't remember all of it now, but they threw all the stuff back in the water. But there was something that he'd stolen early on in the episode that he'd forgotten about. Bit silly, but overall really fun episode. Alright, on to the top 3. In third place, one that I already think is going to be controversial because at the time of recording this, I've just made Quiet Librarian live on YouTube. And I know there was at least one comment basically saying like, sorry you had to come back with a boring episode. I'm like, I really liked it. So I'm wondering if this was not a popular one. I'm not too sure. But I thoroughly enjoyed The Quiet Librarian. I used to be a huge reader. Less so at the moment. I'm going through a phase at the minute of not reading much. Because I love books and libraries and bookstores, the location for me was on point. Pretty much, if you're going to take place in a library, you got me hooked already because if it's about books or a story about like The Bookish Babysitter, where it's about books and novels and stories or libraries, anything like that, you pretty much got me hooked because I love it. I think it's really fascinating to look into, getting sucked into books or there's a creepy librarian. And I think this episode did really good with some scares. I thought the librarian, when she was walking around quietly with like the box, was creepy. And how she took the box open and sound would just stop. I thought that was really well done. Particularly more in the first half of the episode when the kids were screaming and then it would just stop. And initially I was like, oh my god, the noise on my episode's cut out. But it was a genuinely good effect. And the idea of having these people trapped in the basement of the library, locked in that room, quite dark. But I just thought it was good. And I remember really disliking one of the main characters. It was the guy who was quite annoying. And the girl was kind of nerdy but cool. And she was good. But then they came together to save each other towards the end, which was always a nice like development of characters. But I thought it was creepy. I did. But to me, The Quiet Librarian was cool. It was actiony. It was spooky. And it was just really fun. Alright, if you're keeping track, you know what my top 2 are. In which order, you can probably guess if you watch the reactions. But in second place, the tale of the Renegade virus. Right, before we start, is this episode silly? Yes. Is this episode stupid? Yes. Is the episode cheesy and childish? Yes. Did I love the episode? Yes. Like, the virtual reality stuff was very of its time, very cheesy, probably even before its time, to be honest, and the acting was cheesy and the villain was cheesy, but I loved it. It was so fun. The villain in this, the virus, the little person with the brain, perfect. That's what I love about the shows when they have a villain, as you can probably guess my number 1 as well, that's really iconic and memorable. And god, this guy was stupid and silly, but one of my favourite moments of the entire show that I've watched so far is in this episode, and that's when the virus slides up the banister. It's really badly done, but also really greatly done. Like, it's so bad it's great, and I loved it, and it was funny, and honestly every time I think about it makes me laugh. And I just enjoyed him running around after the dude who was trapped in this virtual reality world, and there was the twist that his friend had done this to him, not realising that this was going to happen. I just had a really fun time with it. I know this probably isn't many people's favourite episodes, because I can totally see objectively why people would hate this episode, because it's just stupid and doesn't make a lot of sense. And when he escapes at the end, but the virus is somehow out in the real world as well, and some of the virtual reality stuff, and the guy getting a call from the president, it's stupid. But it's just really fun. It's not scary, it's silly. Some actually really good like body horror effects. I thought the brain on the dude was really good. And I remember there being like a computer port in his hand, He's going to put some into it. That was a little bit like, ooh, body horror. I don't really like this visual. But the actors in this was good. The guy who played the villain was top notch. I thought he was fantastic and funny. And this episode just really stuck in my head after watching it because I didn't remember it much as a kid. But my God, is it fun. And I hope you liked it too. I mean, I just really enjoyed the tale of the Renegade virus. That's why it's my number 2 spot of the season. Okay, a surprise to absolutely nobody. Most people's, I would say, favourite episode is a tale of the Ghastly Grinner. I don't need to say much because anyone watching this will probably know this episode inside out. If you don't love it, that's absolutely fine, of course. But if you're like me, this episode was the most memorable to me as a child. The Ghastly Grinner, I think, is a fantastic villain because he's just memorable. His visuals are really striking. Yellow, blue, jester costume. And he's always smiling and laughing. And that's so unique to just, I'm a ghost. I'm a scary demon. I'm a zombie. Like, a lot of them can get forgotten about because they can be quite similar. This was a very loud, squeaky-voiced dude who was a comic book villain that escaped from the comic books and terrorised people by making them laugh to death. And when they're laughing and the blue gunks coming out their mouths, it's genuinely creepy. And the moment when the bus driver crashed the bus or stopped the bus and he hit his head, I was like, and his blue thing's dripping out of his mouth. It's like, this is a kid show. This is a kid show. Like, scary stuff, but also a really funny episode on top of being creepy. I like it. It's very zany in terms of its, what's the word, like its style, its feeling, its intent. So it does like the zany transitions between scenes, funny sound effects. There's a bit where the Ghastly Grinner's face is like spinning over the scene. The character like Hooper, which I'll get onto because iconic. Like Hooper is played off to be the silly, nerdy character who repeats herself, and juxtaposed by the main dude who's like a bit emo-y, long-haired, I'm a tortured artist. You know, it's very silly, but it's really well crafted and written, and how you doing, cakes? They're so, like, cliched, stereotype characters, but they work really well, and they work really well against this villain that's so crazy, and even when you see the family, and they've got this, like, big kitchen where all these plugs are plugged into this one giant fucking thing that's all connected to these things, and, hey, you want some hot pockets or whatever it was that she said, and they're very typical parents that just eat a lot on these shows and just sit on the sofa, don't pay attention to the kids. It's all just very camp humour, but done so well. Now on to Hooper, the legend, the icon, the moment. She is the moment, the Hooper Piccolero. Me and my boyfriend both love this character because I made him watch this episode. We watched like 1 or 2 episodes of the show because he'd never watched it before. This was, I think, the first one we watched. We always talk about Hooper Piccolero and how much of a legend she was because she's a typical nerdy child who just loves the fact that she's a nerd. I think the line she says at one point is, I think someone should own who they are and just roll with it or something like that. I can't remember. It was so iconic. But I just love the fact that she's so in touch with who she is. She's like, yeah, I'm a nerd, so what? And when the Ghastly Grinner tells her a joke to kind of do that thing where he makes people laugh to death, and he picks her up, and he's like, I can't remember what he said. He's like, what? You're not laughing? And she's like, I don't really have a sense of humour. She's iconic, I swear. And she pulls out the big eraser to save the day. Hooper Piccolero sit next to you in such a body science class. Oh, legend. I even like the main dude. I liked all the actors in this episode, actually. Hooper, the main guy's name I can't remember. The Grinner was fantastic as a villain, very memorable. The parents were good for what they were, and I just thought, and the woman in the shop who plays Stanley Upkiss's niece, whatever it was, granddaughter. Hello, how you doing, cakes? This episode is iconic for a reason, because it really plays, like I said, funny against creepy really well, and gave me some vibes of like Tale of the Full Moon, just in the sense of funny and creepy mixed together, but also very stylized to be a very specific type of episode, which is zany. I always use that word when I describe these kind of episodes because I think it's really on point. Just zany. They're weird, they're kooky, but the Tale of the Ghastly Grinner, for me, is the best episode of season 4, and maybe one of the best episodes of the entire show. Who knows? I love the Tale of the Ghastly Grinner. Okay, that's my ranking of every episode of season 4 of Are You Afraid of the Dark, from number 12 to number 1 because of the two-parter. Let me know down below in the comments what you thought. Did you agree, disagree? Like I say, if you disagree, great, just be nice about it. Everyone's got a different opinion, that's great. And I'd love to hear your opinions and see, do you love Ghastly Grinner? If you don't, if you think Ghastly Grinner is really bad, I'm really intrigued to hear from you guys, find out why. Or if you thought Train Magic, which was my bottom one, was great. I'm really interested to find out that as well. But yeah, let me know down below in the comments what you thought. I'm excited to hear your thoughts too. Alright guys, as always, my name is Scott. Hope you guys are well, taking care of yourselves and staying safe. And yeah, I'll hope to see you very soon for the first episode of Season 5. Thanks for watching, take care, and I'll see you all very soon for the next episode. Bye guys, stay safe.